continue on with our position recaps. Next up, second base. Woof. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, October 23rd. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we are recapping second base. We'll look back at preseason ADP, what went right and wrong, who finished in the top 12, and then an early look at 2026 rankings. Let's begin with the state of second base. And don't let my intro influence you. Scott, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I think woof is totally appropriate. Buzz your girlfriend, woof. That's second base for you. And like third base is pretty bad too. But what third base has that second base is lacking is like the high-end contributors. There are two here in Jazz Chisholm and Ketel Marte. And Chisholm also qualifies at third base, so he may get drafted to play that. But I would say to the degree you want to play position scarcity game, it would be for those two players. I feel like in the round 2-3 range of drafts next year, Ketel Marte and Jazz Chisholm. There are good players beyond them, but there aren't many. By the time you get to 8, 9 at the position, it's like you're kind of not, you're not expecting to draft somebody that you could just slot in there and not worry about again.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is there are useful players beyond the top 12 at second base. It's just they are going to come with either no guarantees with someone like, Luis Garcia or Matt McClain, where there is still some theoretical upside, or guys like Bryson Stott or Xavier Edwards or Gleyber Torres, who are fine, but you are making real sacrifices when you slot them in your lineup. And honestly, that's true at the high end of the position too. I mean, not Jazz Chisholm and Ketel Marte. Chisholm, you have to account for, batting average not being great. Marte is not going to steal any bases. There's some injury risk with both of them. But outside of those two, and maybe Brice Turang, I genuinely have no idea what to make of the Brice Turang power thing, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that. Yeah. But Nico Hoerner's awesome. I love Nico Hoerner. You're getting no power from him. You're getting no power and no RBIs. He's a 3 in a roto league. You're getting 3 really strong category contributions from him, and you're getting nothing else in the other 2. So even a fairly high end player like Nico Hoerner, who I think we all think very highly of, and would be, I think, very happy if he's your starting second baseman next year. You still know, that's what the price. Yeah, that's what the number 4 player, 5 player across the board at the position. You're making a big sacrifice with that already.
Yeah. It feels like there's a lot of floor players at the position, right? It's just Nico Hoerner, set it and forget it. Mm-hmm. You know what you're going to get, kind of. Bryson Stott, very similar player, less batting average. Just looking up and down, it's kind of an older position as well. As good as Ketel Marte is, he's getting a little bit older. There's Jose Altuve, Ozzy Albies, who we have questions about. Marcus Semien is getting older, right? So it's, there's a lot of age at the position. There's also, it feels more like a floor position than lots of upside, I guess. I mean, we have a chance at some prospects. I guess we can mention that a little bit later on. But yeah, it's not great.
I mean, even the actual second base prospects aren't that good, and we're just hoping
shortstop guys that we're hoping get moved to second.
We're hoping it's shortstops get moved to second base, which will happen. When you look at a top 50 right now, it's 8 shortstops and 1 second baseman. But yeah, it's just at least some of those second shortstops will be second baseman or third baseman
eventually. No position remains this weak for long, and it may be by the time we're doing this process at the end of 2026. It's oh, look, a resurgence at second base. It's suddenly a strong position because a lot of those younger players moved there and had big seasons right away. That could happen with Kevin McGonigal or Cole Emerson or whoever, JJ Weatherholt, whoever you want to pick out.
Outfield was really bad 2 years ago.
But as we're sitting here today, deciding who that's going to be and when is not something I feel equipped to do.
I do have some context here. A completely arbitrary stat that maybe only points league players will understand, but second base did not have a single player over 480 fantasy points scored in CBS leagues. For context, first base had 5 that scored 500 plus, and third base and shortstop each had 4 that scored 500 plus. So it's an extremely arbitrary number, but it's just to highlight the lack of high-end talent here at the position that is second base. Let's take a look back at preseason top 12 ADP. According to Fantasy Pros, that included Yahoo, CBS, NFBC, Fantrax, and RT Sports Draft. So we had Jazz Chisholm, Ketel Marte, Jose Altuve, Ozzie Albies, Marcus Semien, Jordan Westburg. Westburg, by the way, lost second base eligibility. That did not help. Matt McLain, Bryce Turang, Luis Garcia Jr., Xander Bogaerts, also lost second base. Luis Ariz, also lost second base. And Nico Hoerner. So again, you're seeing another theme that makes this position a little bit weaker as well.
And you didn't even mention the biggest one to lose second base eligibility, which is
Michael Garcia.
Michael Garcia, thank you.
He just wasn't in the top 12 in ADP.
Correct.
But one of the biggest breakouts at the position who's not at the position anymore.
Yeah. No, he's not a second baseman for fantasy purposes. So that obviously changes the shape of the position as well, because he'd probably be top 5 for 2026 if he was.
Yeah. According to the Fangraphs Player Rater, 6 of those preseason top 12 in ADP actually finished top 12 at the position. So 50% hit rate. That's the same amount as catcher. It's 1 less than first base. Biggest breakouts at the position. Feels like it has to be Bryce Turang. Big step forward just as a hitter and as a power hitter. So the batting average went up. The power went up. We'll talk about him a little bit later on. Jorge Polanco, maybe a re-breakout, finally stayed healthy again and had a very fine season there. Big return on investment if you took him in a deeper league. Biggest bust at second base. We definitely had some big letdowns up top with Ozzie Albies and Marcus Semien, Matt McLain. Chris, in your State of Second Base article and newsletter, you highlighted McLain as the biggest bust. His ADP was just inside the top 90 picks, and he hit just 220, 18 home runs, 15 steals.
We talk a lot about how hard it is to find edges in fantasy baseball, how there are so few obviously mispriced players in drafts these days. Matt McLain felt like one of the most obviously mispriced players in drafts coming into 2025. I still think there's some room for, the reasons that people were excited about him coming into the season aren't completely gone. He still has a little bit of pop and a lot of speed. He still plays in a great ballpark in what should be a better lineup. There are things to like about him. It's so weird how players with an injury history tend to get completely discounted unless there are really extenuating circumstances or they're just elite players. And then Matt McLain had a season-ending injury in 2023, missed all of 2024 with 2 separate significant injuries, and everyone's like, I don't care. This is a borderline elite player who we have to spend a top. He was I was looking the last 3 weeks in ADP. He was a top 75 pick in March drafts and NFBC. That's crazy. This was just, we blew it. I don't know what else to say. I don't understand. I understand what he was good in 2024. No, but the royal we.
I know, but I was
extremely. Yeah, I was extremely out on him. I think I ranked him 125th, so even then I was way too high on him.
Yeah.
But
and that may have been
as
partly
a
an
community
NFBC phenomenon, NFBC because you have to beat hundreds.
But
of
that should have been that should be where the guys with injury risk get most discounted, and it usually is.
Well,
that was why the Matt McLain thing felt so weird, because it was just everybody was it didn't matter that he missed a whole season.
You're also incentivized to take the big swing on the player that you feel like has high upside, even if there's a lot of downside there. And McLain did look like a high upside guy as a rookie. But there are reasons to doubt it even then, and that's why we ranked him more conservatively.
Yeah, looking at the preseason ADP once again, the 5 different sources of ADP, Matt McLain was 79th at NFBC, 74th at Yahoo, but then he was right around 100 at CBS and RT Sports and 124 at Fantrax. So definitely was propped up a little bit specifically by Yahoo and NFBC drafters before the season. Again, that was Matt McLain. And look, I think people thought back to his 2023. He had 16 homers, 14 steals, and 89 games, so they were dreaming on like a 25-25, 30-30 season.
Just don't look under the hood.
Maybe he can.
No, I think
back, but
2025, 2030 is within the realm of possibility. I also think there's legit, like, this guy loses his job potential. So yeah, I just, that, and there was another one. Oh, Roki Sasaki. Roki Sasaki and Matt McLain were the two where it's just like, I get a lot of stuff wrong, so I'm not trying to be too hard on any, but like there were just obvious red flags with both of those guys that just got overlooked in ways that I don't think made sense, and it didn't work out. So those were 2 I got right, at least.
I mentioned 2 other names there as preseason busts, Marcus Semien and Ozzie Albies. We'll talk about those guys later on once we kind of bring up rankings for next season. But, you know, Semien, mid-30s in terms of his age, and might be at the end of the road. Ozzie Albies bounced back, but then suffered a hamate bone injury towards the end of the season. So just adds another layer of risk and uncertainty. And again, I think he's maybe the biggest wild card at the position for next season. Again, that was Ozzie Albies. Big thanks to those watching live. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. And just a reminder that you can always listen to the audio podcast on Spotify podcast. If you're watching, you can scan that QR code. That will bring you right to the FBT feed on Spotify. Let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Let's quickly hit the news and notes before we get back into second base. And it turns out Francisco Lindor underwent minor cleanup surgery on his right elbow shortly after the season ended. He is expected to be fully ready for spring training. Apparently had something similar done after 2023, and it has not affected his production. So assuming we don't hear anything else and he shows up to spring training, I would just assume all is well with Francisco Lindor. The Guardians have denied Emmanuel Clase permission to play winter ball in Venezuela. Apparently, they denied him permission to play in the Dominican Republic as well. Reminder that Clase is still being investigated for alleged ties to sports betting. We have seen some tweets and whispers that he might not ever pitch in Major League Baseball ever again. That is a real possibility, but as of now, we don't know that to be sure. So still kind of waiting for that situation to unfold. The Mariners are expected to give top prospect Colt Emerson runway to win an opening day roster spot. He's 20 years old, first round pick back in 2023. And this season in the minors at 285 with 16 homers, 14 steals, and 842 OPS. He got 6 games in at AAA. He's mostly played shortstop in the minors. He's played a little bit of second, a little bit of third. Mariners have a few different options and things that they could do this offseason. You know, JP Crawford grades out as a pretty bad defender now and is entering his final year of team control as well. Scott, what do you know about Colt Emerson? And is there any chance he could play second base?
I mean, there's a chance, or they could shift. They could shift JP Crawford over to second base if they're not satisfied with his defense at short anymore. You know, since he did advance to AAA, I don't think it's crazy to think he could make the team with a big spring.
Eugenio Suarez is a free agent.
Yep. So he could
third.
play there too if Suarez leaves. Colt Emerson's a huge prospect. He's not considered a final product in terms of power, but he did make a big leap this year, and every other aspect of his hitting profile is great. And so you know, it would take a big spring, I think, but it wouldn't be the most shocking thing if Emerson did make the team.
there's a lot of shortstops right on the cusp of the majors right now among the prospects, like guys who have gotten to AA and AAA, and maybe I think like DeVries and Sebastian Walcott almost certainly won't be up in the first half, but like McGonigal, Emerson, a couple other guys like that could be opening day options. Honestly, hopefully not at shortstop. I think would be the preference, because third base and second base need the help a lot more. Aiden Miller, another one on the Phillies. He got up to AAA last year too.
Yeah. JJ Weatherholt again with the Cardinals too. That's another name. You mentioned Kevin McGonigal. It turns out he has been working at third base in the Arizona Fall League. He's shortstop eligible for now, but he's already trying another position. So
Kalen Culpepper and the Twins. It's another one to keep an eye on.
Angels pitching prospect and 2025 first-round pick Tyler Bremner is not pitching in fall instructs due to elbow soreness. It's mostly precautionary. His MRI came back clean, but something to watch. The Angels drafted him, I think, second or third overall with the hope of pushing him pretty quickly, but that can't happen if he's dealing with elbow soreness. So we'll see what happens there. Some manager updates. The Giants have officially hired Tony Vitello as their next manager. He was previously the coach at the University of Tennessee since 2018 and is an interesting hire. He has no professional experience, but was very successful at the college level. Chris and I spoke a little bit about this the other day. He seems like a smart dude, interesting dude. Whenever I would watch the MLB draft on MLB Network, he would, he was on their kind of panel and breaking prospects down and stuff. So, interesting hire there for the Giants. The Angels have hired former Major League catcher Kurt Suzuki as their manager, but in classic Angels fashion, they gave him a 1-year deal, which is something we almost never see for managers. And apparently this is because their GM, Perry Manassian, has also just 1 year left on his deal. And he said, quote, "We are tied together." So. Angels gonna angel? I don't know.
Well, there was also, I don't know if you guys saw today, there was something about like Yusei Kikuchi said that the air conditioning in their workout room was broken all year, and then Perry Manassian was like, no, it wasn't. And they were like, "Are you saying he's lying?" And he's like, it wasn't broken. I don't know what you're talking about. And it's just like some organizations just can't help but be bad, and the Angels are one of them.
I'm kind of surprised because Kurt Suzuki was a hot name in for the managerial openings, which there are still a lot of. So I'm kind of surprised he jumped at this particular opportunity, but I'm sure he knows more about his managerial prospects than I do.
Lastly, and perhaps the most important manager update, Scott White has made his managerial debut, leading his kids' Little League team to victory. Some are calling him a modern-day Bobby Cox. Scott?
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. But no, it was actually pretty gratifying because, as I mentioned last week, the actual manager was reluctantly thrust into the role. He wasn't there this past Saturday, had a work thing. So I was called on to lead the troops, who did not appear to have a clue what they were doing on defense the previous week. We had half an hour before the game to get some practice time in. I lined them up, showed each of them what to do if the ball came to them. And they actually did it, Frank. They actually did it. We played some good defense. We prevented the opposing team from scoring the maximum number of runs in 2 of the 3 innings. We got 3 outs instead. And we came away with the win. And it was immensely gratifying, I have to say. I might have to do more of this.
Run prevention 101. Look at Scott teaching defense. The Ron Washington School of Defense. Here we go. Scott teaching little kids. I love it. That's great, man. It's so cool that both your kids play on the same team together. And obviously you get to coach them for at least 1 week. But you know what? You led them to victory, Scott. I say that you've earned yourself another chance at managing. So let me know how it goes.
Maybe a Wally Pipp situation, except among managers. I don't know what the managerial equivalent of that is, but
let's do it. I hope it works out, man. All right, let's get into the top 12 second basemen from this past season. This is according to the Fangraphs player rater. So this is for Roto/category leagues. I will also mention fantasy points per game as well for those who play in points leagues. The number one second baseman was Brice Turang. He averaged 3 fantasy points per game. That was tied for 4th at the position. He improved dramatically as a hitter. He sacrificed some strikeout rate, but he hit the ball harder, which led to more power. It led to a higher batting average, better expected stats. The trade-off here was less steals. So stolen bases went from 50 to 24 year over year. Now, Scott, we're left trying to figure out, A, what kind of player Turang will be in 2026, and B, how much we trust the gains he made this past season.
And I want to stress, these were big gains.
Massive.
Rather shockingly, Brice Turang improved both his average exit velocity and max exit velocity by about 4 miles per hour from the previous year. So his average exit velocity was 75th percentile. Like, he was genuinely hitting the ball like you'd expect a power hitter to. He just wasn't angling it properly until August. And August is when he hit
10 home runs.
More than half of the 18 home runs. Yeah, 10 of the 18 home runs came in that month alone. He kind of gave back some of that in September. Didn't maintain the high pull air rate that he showed in August, but he got a taste of it. You know, I think that's something he can work on. Turang certainly hits the ball hard enough to deliver that kind of power, as I said. The steals, you pointed out, Frank, dropped from 24 after being at 50 the previous year. But there's no reason he can't get some of that back either. I mean, those extra home runs, you'd think maybe that would take away some stolen base opportunities, but not 26 of them. So, like, we may have a legitimate 20 homer, 40 steal guy here in Brice Turang at a position that desperately needs it. And it's hard not to rank him optimistically, given his youth and given the need for that at this position.
I just really struggle with the fact that it was 10 homers in August, no more than 2 in any other month. Now, months are completely arbitrary measures of time. It may not matter at all. And you are generally better off just looking at the whole season and saying he hit 18 homers. Nothing in the underlying data looks fluky. He's probably just an 18 homer guy moving forward. I'm having a mental block with that one. Just because it was so heavily, like, it was just 4 weeks where he went bonkers. And then after that, outside of that, he was just the same guy he was last year.
But
the underlying numbers,
exit velocities the exit velocity pointed to this possibility all season.
Yeah.
And August is when he finally put it together.
He was the biggest gainer in bat speed of any qualified hitter. And that started immediately. That was one that I noted. I remember seeing that like 4 days into the season, that Brice Turang was swinging the bat harder. And so I mostly buy it. There is just that little part that's like, I don't know if I can fully buy it, but this is one that I'm going to guess there's going to be a decent amount of skepticism around anyway, to the point where he'll probably be priced reasonably enough that the risk is baked in.
And he has finished as a top 50 overall player 2 years in a row now, so I don't think his ADP will be inside the top 50. Obviously, he's done that 2 very different ways, 2024 versus 2025, but he has proven at least 2 years in a row that he finds ways to be a productive player for fantasy. Again, that was Brice Turang.
That's an interesting one about whether he will be drafted aggressively because of position scarcity or conservatively because of skepticism over the power. And I could see it maybe depending on format. Like if you play in a head-to-head league with no middle infield spot and you need impact from every position, you might stretch a little more for Turang than if you play in a standard roto lineup with a middle infield spot where you know somebody like Bryson Stott, who's not great, but like if you draft him, you're probably going to rely on him all season long. So like those high floor options you're talking about, Frank, at second base, where they actually have some value if you play in that kind of league because everybody needs an extra middle infielder. Then maybe you play it a little more conservatively with Turang. Let him slip a little more and draft safer options ahead of him. But I could see that going either way.
The number 2 second baseman was Jazz Chisholm. He averaged 3.2 fantasy points per game. That was third at the position. He went 30-30 in just 130 games. He missed some time with an oblique injury. He's really leaned into the fly ball approach in Yankee Stadium. It definitely has worked out for fantasy. Still has an extensive injury history, but he's entering a contract year in 2026. Sometimes, guys, just find a way to stay healthy. If you want to dream with Jazz, I mean, we could get a 35-35. We could push 40-40 here in 2026.
His first 162 games with the Yankees, I believe he went 40-40.
Yeah. Yep.
And he has stayed healthier the past 2 seasons. I think there have still been a couple of injuries each time. Last year it was the elbow. This year I think he missed about a month with an oblique. But, one IL stint per season is an improvement for Jazz Chisholm. So
yeah,
I don't think it's hopeless that he stays healthy this year and has a huge season. Yeah.
Without considering the best case scenario, which 6 years into his career, we probably shouldn't be chasing that best case scenario for Jazz Chisholm anymore. I would just say back-to-back years of a combined 60-plus homers and steals at this position. Or even if you wanted to draft Chisholm at third base at that position is pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
You got to safeguard against the batting average, but he seems like a player, left-handed hitter. He really took to playing at Yankee Stadium, a higher pull air rate this year, and has maximized his power output there. I feel as comfortable drafting Jazz Chisholm now as probably I ever have. Wouldn't want to do it before round 3 in a 12-team context.
Yeah. Which you might have to.
Might have to.
In a roto league especially. In a points league, he's definitely a guy who loses something. But actually, 3.2 points per game was still very good last year.
It's still very good. But I probably flip-flop my top 2. I do for sure flip-flop my top 2. I go Chisholm over Marte in categories, Marte over Chisholm in points.
I think both of those are fairly easy calls, too.
But I think in categories where I rank Chisholm ahead, I'm okay if somebody else wants to reach for Chisholm falling back on Marte. Like at the 2-3 turn, somebody else is going for Chisholm there. Okay, I'll fall back on Marte. I'm okay with that.
The only difference in a categories league is that their skill sets are completely different, right? So it might depend on, how you want to build out your team or who your first round pick was. If you take Judge with your first pick, Jazz might make more sense to get some power. But, if you start Judge Marte, then you're
get some speed. Yeah.
You're chasing a lot of speed after that. So,
I mean, there's a lot of rounds after 1 and 2. So I try to just take the best 2 players with the first 2 rounds and not play the category maximization game. But, others feel differently about that.
The number 3 second baseman was Nico Hoerner. He averaged 2.9 fantasy points per game. That was tied for 7th at the position. There were some concerns coming into the season. He had flexor tendon surgery last offseason, but he produced once again. He has had pretty similar seasons 3 years in a row. If you average those 3 seasons out, it's a 284 batting average, 7 homers, 91 runs scored, 34 steals. Mentioned this earlier, feels more like a floor pick. You know what you're getting with Nico Hoerner. And that is totally fine. It's just you can't really dream on much more upside with someone like Hoerner.
Last year was the year to draft him. He was outside the top 200 in ADP because of that elbow injury. We weren't sure. He wasn't ready for opening day. He missed 2 games at the start of the season. So worked out really well. He played 156. He's going to hit between 275 and 295. He's going to hit less than 10 home runs. He's going to score 90 runs. He's going to steal 30 bases. It's very, very easy to project Nico Hoerner. It doesn't seem like there's much variation here. He's got a very strong contact profile and very, very little power, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with having a guy who you know what to expect from him, and especially when it's, runs, batting average, and steals, all three of those can be kind of the three harder position or categories to fill in a roto league anyway. So you have to be more conscious of filling those three, and Nico Hoerner can help you with that.
I feel like he has a chance to be a trap player, if I could coin a term there, a trap player for 2026. In that he is fine. I have him as a top 5 player for next year, but a lot of that is the context of the position, and I think that same context could end up pushing him up in drafts in a way that he can't live up to, or at least has a very narrow path to living up to. I mean, 290 in a categories league roto context, 297 batting average like he delivered in 2025 looks a lot better than the 273 mark he delivered in 2024. And it's kind of just happenstance the way the 297 happens instead of the 273. So you don't really know what you're getting there, if he's a true difference maker at batting average or if he's just pretty good. And because he kind of defaults his way into the top 5 at second base, I think you're going to see him overdrafted in a lot of leagues. Just somebody saying, I got to get a good second baseman. He's good, but he's not like a difference maker, like you'd expect a top 5 player to position to be.
Top of your head, 100th pick?
That was my next question. You're pretty good at this, Chris.
I will know.
Been doing it for a while.
I will know by the end of next week. I would guess I have him Nico Hoerner outside of the top 100 in my own personal rankings.
So last year there were 7 second basemen drafted in the top 100. If we see a similar shape, then I'll probably be out on Nico Hoerner.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head, Chris. You said the time to draft Nico Hoerner was last year when his ADP was around or outside the top 200. If you got to use a top 100 pick now, how about you just wait 100 more picks and draft Bryson Stott, something like that.
Yeah.
Although you're not going to get the batting average, but everything else, might be a pretty close skill set there from Bryson Stott.
I mean, it's honestly Xavier Edwards might be the con. Like, you're going to get a lot fewer runs, but the stolen bases and batting average are going to be very, very similar for Xavier Edwards.
I think I made that comp in my write-up for the top 20. Okay, my top 20 at second base, I actually wrote a 30 steal guy for this is for Xavier Edwards. A 30 steal guy is far less interesting than a 60 steal guy, which is what Edwards was on pace to do in 2024, particularly when there's no power to speak of. But from a 5x5 context, the gap between Edwards and Nico Hoerner may be overstated here, owing mostly to longevity and supporting cast.
Yeah,
so
it's 15 to 20 runs and 15 to 20 RBI. Right. Depends if you think you can make up for that.
And 3 or 4 homers. That's pretty big, Chris.
That's true. It just depends if you think you can make up for that with the, 80 pick difference, 100 pick difference that there might be between the two of them. I think just right now in October, having done no drafts and not having done my overall rankings, I think I'd rather have Xavier Edwards than Nico Hoerner at cost. Yeah, it just depends where that cost settles.
Yeah. Because right now, like, just looking at my own rankings, I have Hoerner 5th and Xavier Edwards 15th. So that's the gap that's being overstated by my rankings.
Yeah.
The number 4 second baseman was Maikel Garcia, who had himself a breakout season, one of the biggest returns on investment, but no longer has second base eligibility, so we'll save him for third base. The number 5 second baseman was... You'll have to wait and see. Take a break. We'll be back right after this.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it? The crowd here feels electric. Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount+.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today we are recapping the second base position from this past season. And number 5 was Ketel Marte. He averaged 3.5 fantasy points per game, which led all second basemen, but he didn't rank there in total points because he missed time. Ketel Marte is almost a guarantee to miss some time throughout the course of the season, but when he plays, he is a consistent elite level bat. He has posted an 893 OPS or better 2 years in a row. But again, he has averaged 25 missed games per season over the last 4 years. He's getting a little bit older. He's 32 years old. Regardless, elite 4-category player, and he's even better in a head-to-head points league where the replacement value off the waiver wire is so much better. So
this is players like Ketel Marte who are going to miss 25 to 30 games at least. Their value fluctuates a lot depending on format. If you're in an NFBC main event, which I know there are only like 700 people who actually play those, but if you are, that's a tough pill to swallow. It's a 15-team league with no IL spots. That can be really, really tough to replace someone. In a 12-team points league, even at second base, there's going to be someone there for those 3 or 4 weeks, and you can slot them in. A lot of people act like the team you draft is the team you're stuck with, and that's not how it actually works. If guys miss time, you get to replace them more often than not. So if anything, if there's an injury discount for Marte, which at this point there probably isn't much of one, just because he's so good at such a bad position, but any injury discount you can get, I think, is worth taking on a player like this.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's one of the keys to being successful in head-to-head points, like a standard CBS head-to-head points league, is knowing that the roster you draft is unlikely to resemble the roster you finish with, and leaning into that with some of those by making riskier investments in higher impact players, which Ketel Marte in a points league especially, you don't, at this position, you don't get higher impact than that. I just wanted to say, we're kind of making one of the same knocks on Ketel Marte is what we said for Jazz Chisholm. Mm-hmm. And like, those are the two clear standouts at second base, two that you're, because of the way the rest of this position breaks down, you might be inclined to reach for in the name of position scarcity. But it adds to the danger that you expect each of them to miss 15 to 25 games. At least. Yeah. And so that makes it riskier. I also wanted to say for Ketel Marte, kind of similar to what I was saying for Nico Hoerner. First half, Ketel Marte hit 290. Second half, he hit 276. That's not a big difference just on its own, but that range for Ketel Marte, is he a 270 hitter or is he a 295 hitter? Because you can't really predict where he falls within that range, that's part of the reason I think he has to, in categories, leagues rank behind Chisholm.
And the difference between,
for sure, will give you the steals.
Yeah, the difference between 290 and 270 matters. It's also like 8 hits over the course of a season. Like I think what you're saying is the difference between 270 and 290 is often not a matter of skill.
Right.
It's just stuff happens in baseball.
And but it makes a difference for how impactful the guy is in that category. I mean, either way, Ketel Marte is going to be a plus for batting average, but it might make half a round's difference if you're expecting 295 versus you're expecting 275.
The number 6 second baseman was Jose Altuve. He averaged 2.8 fantasy points per game. That was tied for 7th at second base. He's getting older, there's no doubt. He's mid-30s in terms of age now, but still productive. 265 batting average, 26 homers, 10 steals. The 265 batting average, his lowest in a full season throughout his entire career. He only had 1 month with an OPS over 750. Altuve, Scott, clearly in decline, but it's mostly been a graceful decline to this point.
Well, is he clearly in decline? Like, there are some signs to suggest he's in decline. The batting average and stolen bases, they dropped to a level where we're not used to seeing them from Jose Altuve. The power was fine. A lot of the underlying indicators were fine. And we've seen him drop off as a base stealer before and come roaring back. So it's harder to make that case at 30 for a 35-year-old that he's going to regain that. But it also is just one season that's out of out of step with the others and in a way that's not where there aren't any major red flags apart from just his age and apart from the surface level numbers. So I'm pretty confident ranking Jose Altuve fourth at this position for next year. I've always been somebody I've long been somebody who's considered him undervalued in fantasy and tend to draft Jose Altuve a lot. I think you'll be able to draft him at least a couple rounds later in 2026, and that is a price I am still eager to sign up for. In fact, I'm going to guess he'll be my most drafted second baseman again, because if he ends up getting faded like I think he will, that'll be a much more appealing price tag to me, Jose Altuve in round 6, let's say, than Jazz Chisholm or Ketel Marte at the 2-3 turn.
What I would say is Jose Altuve is always going to be a guy who overperforms his expected stats. That's baked in for his career in the StatCast era. He's got a 336 xWOBA and a 366 xWOBA. That's over, 7,000 plate appearances, something like that. Like, this is a huge number. It's clearly a skill he has. But the last 2 seasons, the xWOBA has gone from 331 in 2023, 316, 306. I think he's on a glide path now. And, when a plane runs out of fuel, it can stay in the air for a while. It's going to crash at some point. And it's mostly a question of, does it make it to an airport runway? Does it find a nice open field? Or does it start to careen? I don't know how planes work. Do the rudders go? I don't know. Whatever. The point is, at some point, I think it's going to get pretty ugly. I don't think we're there yet, and I think it's likely to continue to be a relatively gradual decline. But I'm not expecting him to bounce back to hit 290 again this year.
Would it surprise you if he did?
No, but I'm drafting him as if he's going to hit 265, 270.
I wouldn't expect the steals to bounce back either. I mean, just at his age.
But
the sprint speed has fallen off too.
25 homers, 10 to 15 steals, that's still great. And I agree that there's a decent chance that he ends up getting pushed down enough that it just doesn't matter. That, right. We start he was 61 in ADP in NFBC leagues last year. I would expect something like 80 now. And that feels like a perfectly fine price to pay for what Jose Altuve is now.
You said his ADP was what, around 60?
61, I think, yeah.
And he actually finished overall 71st. So if you look at it like that, I mean, he didn't meet where you drafted him. He was, fine, pretty close to it. But I just don't know that you can expect, if you're using your 5th or 6th round pick on Altuve at this point, for him to exceed that value, basically. And
I mean, it sounds like it's more like round 7 is where we should be looking to draft him, and I would be.
I mean, yeah, that's a guess. We'll see what it ends up being.
Yeah, we'll see what it ends up being. But if he finished 71st last year and you're guessing 80th, again, I'll have a better idea at the end of next week once I've put my top 600s together.
All right, the number 7 and 8 second baseman, I'm going to pair these two together and give each of you one of them to talk about because they're pretty similar. They're both big injury risks. They stayed healthy. They had productive seasons. Brandon Lowe and Jorge Polanco. Brandon Lowe managed to play 134 games. He hit 31 homers, 83 RBI, a 785 OPS. Still hits the ball hard. Not sure if he's going to be on the Rays. I feel like every offseason we hear he's going to be traded. And it hasn't happened yet, but maybe this will be the offseason that happens. And Jorge Polanco managed to stay healthy as well. 138 games played, hit 265, 26 homers, and 821 OPS. He has a player option this offseason. My guess is he will become a free agent. We'll see if he's back with Seattle. He actually hit pretty well there. So not sure that I'm opposed to Polanco going back to the Mariners. Chris, why don't you kick us off, talk about Brandon Lowe, and then Scott, you can pick it up with Jorge Polanco.
I mean, with Lowe, there's really not much to say. He just did what he did the previous 2 seasons, but stayed a little healthier. Yeah. Instead of playing around 100 games, he played around 135 games and got to 30 homers. That's who he is. He's not you go back to that 2021 season when he had 39 homers and 863 OPS, and 2020 he had the 960. Like, he's not that guy. He's not like a legit elite power hitter, but he's the best power hitter at second base, I think. And whether he's on the Rays or not doesn't really matter to me. I think he's going to be a very good power hitter no matter where he lands. If anything, Tropicana, not a great place to hit. Steinbrenner obviously was a great place to hit. I think it's possible he gets a park upgrade out of this, at least relative to Tropicana if he's traded. So I can't say you pencil him in for 30 just because this is another guy you do expect to miss some time, but it's going to be a 35 homer pace, and it's just a question of how many games do you get out of him. And I would guess there's still going to be a pretty decent discount on Brandon Lowe given the injury history. So I expect to once again draft a decent amount of Brandon Lowe. He was so cheap this year.
Yeah, he was
213.1 ADP.
It was laughably cheap.
And he'll go up significantly from that, but I don't think he's going to push inside the top 100 or anything. I would guess, I don't know, 150-ish for Brandon Lowe, maybe a little higher than that. I think that's probably reasonable, and I'll probably draft a decent amount of him.
Yeah, because he's my 6th second baseman for next year. I said Hoerner 5th, and I doubt I'll have him in my top 100.
Mm-hmm.
But it is funny that he'll go twice as early, basically, as last year. And nothing really changed for Brandon Lowe. It's just, we're reminded that he could stay healthy again.
And he played 27 more games, which is not nothing, but it's not like a huge difference.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy how undervalued he was. Probably will be more appropriately valued. So that's Brandon Lowe. Jorge Polanco. You've signed me with him, Frank. And, we were just saying Jose Altuve, this disappointing version of Jose Altuve that we got in 2025, finished 71st overall. Well, Polanco had basically the same season. What was a disappointing season for Jose Altuve was kind of a best case scenario for Polanco. But I don't even know that it is truly the best case because he was limited early this year. I think it was an oblique injury that prevented him from hitting from the right side. He's a switch hitter, and so he was in and out of the lineup a lot early on, ended up playing in just 138 games, but hit 26 homers, had an 821 OPS. The underlying numbers back it up. Expected batting average 276, expected slug 476. There's a lot of red on that StatCast page for Jorge Polanco. He also cut way down on his strikeouts. He had his best season in a while and expected to enter free agency as he turns down a player option. So, he'll have a chance to maybe go obviously he's been a postseason hero for the Mariners. Maybe they want him back, but if they don't, maybe he ends up at a better ballpark. I think there are a lot of reasons to see the glass half empty here. Like I said, it was Polanco's best season in a while. He's 32. He's had some propensity for injury in recent years, but he seems like kind of the last hope looking at rankings for next year. There are some second basemen I rank ahead of him who we haven't talked about yet just because they didn't play very well in 2025. But by where I expect Polanco to go at second base, he's going to be kind of the last, I'm not going to say the last hope for plus production here, but the last bet among those who showed it recently, that you're not counting on a big step forward for him to do it.
Do you think Jorge Polanco goes ahead of Jackson Holiday next year?
No.
I rank him ahead of Jackson Holiday.
No, I do too.
Frank just says no.
No, there's no way in ADP that it will play.
Yeah, I think the ADP will be Holiday ahead of Polanco.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be, but I think it will be.
You think there's... You don't think enthusiasm for Holiday has waned enough that you think people will still keep making that bet?
He went 17-17, and he's like just entering his age 22 season next year. I think it's totally reasonable to expect another step forward next season. And I think a lot of people will think of it that way as well. I mean, and it's not a knock on Polanco. He had a great season, and we know that he's a productive player when he's healthy. It's just we haven't seen a lot of that health in recent years, man. Polanco,
it was a 690 OPS for. He wasn't actually that good.
I think it's going to be more about Polanco being underrated than anything else. I think Polanco is going to be a back half of the 100s kind of guy.
And that's fair. Like, I don't think you should draft him according to the numbers he just put up, which was, like I said, very much in line with what Jose Altuve did. But I don't know. It's a lot of wishful thinking beyond Polanco. Polanco himself, you could say, is wishful thinking, but it's everyone after him is wishful thinking too, or just you're settling for mediocrity.
I also just want to mention the roller coaster that was Jorge Polanco's season. His first month was tremendous. He had a 1226 OPS in April. From May through June, a 2-month stretch, he had a 503 OPS. I mean, that was a completely unusable player for fantasy. Probably wound up on a bunch of waiver wires again. Then from July through September, final 3 months, an 899 OPS, and he was really, really useful during that span. So just a roller coaster ride of a season there for Jorge Polanco. We don't have much time left, so here's what I'm going to do. We have 3 more players left to talk about. I'll give you guys a minute each to talk about each of these players. The number 9 second baseman was Ceddanne Rafaela. He actually has second base and outfield eligibility for next season. Only 2.5 fantasy points per game. That's not a surprise given his plate discipline. He did improve a lot. He also just still doesn't walk at all, but the strikeout rate took a huge step forward this past season. He actually took off in the middle of the season and then just kind of scuffled his way to the end, the final 2 months of the year. Chris, I feel like we still should expect these wild swings in production, just given the crazy chase rates and plate discipline from Ceddanne Rafaela.
Homeless man's Pete Crow Armstrong is Ceddanne Rafaela. I think he is. I don't think he's very good, personally. I think he's a useful MLB player. I think he's
actually
a really good baseball player. His defensive versatility, his base running,
that will keep him on the field.
He does a lot of things well. I just think as a hitter, he's still pretty overmatched, and he's had to. I don't know. He does a little bit of like the pulling the ball in the air when he's right, but it's just the plate discipline is so bad. The quality of contact is still pretty mediocre. I don't have a lot of interest in him for fantasy. I think I'd rather do Jackson Holiday than Ceddanne Rafaela, actually.
I have Holiday ranked ahead as well.
Yeah, I have more faith in that working out.
He did. Ceddanne Rafaela, again, he improved the strikeout rate and he improved his quality of contact. So he's still like 25 years old. He could take another step forward and maybe we see a little bit more consistency out of him. Like, there's an outside chance he can go 2020 next season and hit 250, and that's like a decent fantasy player, but it might be pretty empty too. He's not going to get on base. The counting stats might not be great either from Rafaela. The number 10 second baseman was Bryson Stott, 2.6 fantasy points per game. Mentioned this earlier. He's kind of like Nico Hoerner, just with a worse batting average. Scott, you know what to expect here. It's 250 to 260, 12-ish home runs, 25 to 30 steals. Solid player, Bryson Stott. Feels more like a middle infielder than a starting second baseman for fantasy.
Yeah, I would say so. Stott is the sort of player who in head-to-head leagues, traditional ones without a middle infield spot, probably not even worth drafting. In leagues like a standard roto with a middle infield spot, probably going to be started for somebody every week. And so it's just, you said there are a lot of high floor players at this position. Bryson Stott's kind of the epitome of that. Because he's going to give you a useful number of steals, a not unuseful number of home runs. But the Phillies tend to sit him against lefties, and that really drags down his upside.
The number 11 second baseman was Luis Ariz. He no longer has second base eligibility. He's first base only. And we won't talk about him here. We'll save it for another podcast, but definitely a player worth talking about, and have no idea what his market is going to look like this offseason because the batting average has taken a step back 2 years in a row, and
That's the
not
only
sure
thing
what
he
else.
does. Literally the only skill he has.
Yeah, not sure what else he provides outside of that. He's a really, really bad defender too. So we'll see if Luis Arraez even has a starting job next season. The number 12 second baseman was Xavier Edwards. He has both second base and shortstop eligibility for next year, 2.7 fantasy points per game. That was tied for 12th. And he fell off quite a bit from his half-season sample in 2024. What we wanted most from Edwards was steals. He gave us just 27 in 139 games. The rate in which he ran came way down. He had a steal every 2.3 games in 2024. That was every 5.1 games this past season. So it more than doubled the frequency in which you got a stolen base from Xavier Edwards. So, Chris, the biggest thing here is if he's not giving you 40-plus steals, can the hits at home run and RBI outweigh what he's going to give you in batting average and steals, basically?
I think a bigger thing would be, can he build on the 75 runs? Because if he can, then he's Nico Hoerner, and that's a good player. If he's a 75 to 80 run guy instead of a 95 to 100 run guy, then it's a lot harder to take a hit in 3 categories. The steals, I would guess that was just the Marlins hiring a more analytically inclined manager. I want to check. They stole 138 bases this year, actually 125 the year before. So
he's actually not that fast, though. He's like 75th percentile.
Yeah, he's slower than you think. He missed time with a back injury. Maybe that's it. It was in May, but I think he also had his best stolen base month in August, so I don't know if that explains it. It could be just he starts running more next year, and he's back to being a 40 steal guy who hits 285, 290, and no cause for concern. But he has very little defensive value. He was definitely better at second base than shortstop. He was unplayable at shortstop. I don't know. I think in a lot of ways he's just a poor man's Nico Hoerner. I just don't know how likely it is he becomes more than that. But depending on price, he could be fine. Yeah,
I think the steals would, because Nico Hoerner's 25, 30 steals, kind of locked in at that. Xavier Edwards now, as a rookie in a half season, was on a 60 steal pace. I don't think he's going to be a 60 steal guy, but if he can get to being a 40 steal guy as opposed to the 27 he had, then that closes the gap on Hoerner a lot.
Let's wrap up with a quick look at early 2026 second base rankings. We'll also have an FBT Express episode that drops Friday morning, looking into these rankings as well. For Scott, the top 6, we have Jazz, Chisholm, Ketel Marte, Brice Turang, Jose Altuve, Nico Hoerner, and Brandon Lowe. For Chris, it's Jazz, Chisholm, Ketel Marte, Brice Turang, Nico Hoerner, so a little bit higher there, Brandon Lowe, and then Altuve a little bit lower. So it's the same 6, slightly different order. It's obviously lacking that oomph. We have, 2 elite players, but then it kind of falls off a little bit there. Is there anything to add? You guys have the same 6 players here.
Yeah, it's basically I have Altuve 2 spots higher. Chris has him 2 spots lower, and we kind of went over that. I anticipate I'll be higher on him than the consensus again. I think these 6 you're at risk of overpaying for. So a lot of if I'm thinking about drafting any of them next year, I mean, they're kind of the safe, quote unquote, 6 at second base. And so it's really going to come down to, are they priced reasonably or not? And if they're not, then I'm going to take a shot at 1 or 2 of the many, many wild cards that follow.
The safe 6, Spider-Man's worst villains.
If we look at 7 through 12 at second base for next season, Scott has Ozzie Albies, Luke Ketel, Jorge Polanco, Gleyber Torres, Jackson Holliday, and Marcus Semien. For Chris, it's Luke Ketel, Ozzie Albies, Jorge Polanco, Jackson Holliday, Bryson Stott, and Marcus Semien. So only difference here, the order is a little bit different, but Scott has Gleyber in his top 12. Chris doesn't. Chris has Bryson Stott in his top 12, and Scott doesn't. I do want to take a quick look at 4 names in particular here: Ozzie Albies, Luke Ketel, Jackson Holliday, and Marcus Semien. Scott, I mentioned this at the top. For me, Ozzie Albies, a huge wild card. He looked like himself in the second half of the season. He said that wrist was still bothering him in the first half. Looked much healthier in the second half. Looked like himself. And then a broken hamate bone to finish the season, and it's the same hand/wrist that he had surgery on the year prior. So it just adds a complete unknown factor for next season.
I mean, I was preparing to rank Albies 5th at this position next year. He, in the second half, 272, 9 home runs, 7 steals, a 769 OPS. That's basically a normal Ozzy Albies season. He provides the explanation of him being hindered by the wrist that he had fractured the previous year. It made total sense, but then this broken hamate bone, I mean, that is historically an injury that's known to have even more negative effects on a player when they come back from it than just a fractured wrist would. So if Albies was struggling to get back to full strength from that fractured wrist, how's this going to go with the hamate bone? It's not a guarantee that his power won't be normal, but it wouldn't be surprising if it hindered his power early on. And Ozzy Albies, when his power is hindered, as much as he tends to put the ball in the air, it doesn't go well.
Mm-hmm. He does nothing.
Yeah, so he's going to be very risky again, unfortunately, for next year because of that fractured hamate bone.
It's a real bummer.
But with a high reward too. And so it's again going to come down to whatever the price ends up being for Albies. It does the reward outweigh the risk for me? And if it's around pick 150, probably. But much earlier than that, I might play it safe and avoid him. But he's not. You kind of mentioned at the top, Frank. Second base is showing its age. Albies is 28. He'll be 29.
It feels like he's 35, though.
Yeah. He's been around a lot. He started very young.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of gas in this engine. Okay. If he can just get past these hand injuries he's had the past couple years, I still think we're going to get a lot of mileage out of Albies in fantasy.
Luke Ketel, a top prospect entering the season, and he impressed in a limited sample, hit 302, 4 homers, 14 steals in just 49 games. Chris, I love the plate discipline. I love the speed. But there are real questions here about the power. His quality of contact was abysmal. It was pretty bad in the minor leagues as well. We only have a small sample of that. He kind of looks like, for now, and again, he can get stronger and get better. He kind of profiles as like a 270, 280 hitting 10 homer, like 30 steal guy. Does that seem fair to you?
In my state of the position piece, I said 275, 15 homers, 40-ish steals seems like an upside.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe take off 5 homers if you want to be less optimistic, 5 steals, but it doesn't sound that different from Nico Hoerner. And Luke Ketel's a guy that, given how wide open this position is and given how few sure thing difference makers there are, I think if someone wanted to rank him as high as the number 4 second baseman, I wouldn't really have a big argument against it. I think it's a reach, but I think it's a reach that is well within his grasp. I think the skill set's great. He did have 19 homers in 162 games in the minors, 45 steals there. His paces so far in the majors aren't that far off. He's kind of just been the exact same guy in the majors and minors. It's only a 49-game sample size in the majors. Obviously, like you said, quality of contact here not very good, and he doesn't have the super high pulled air rate to make up for it. So
yeah,
I think you should probably expect 10 homers.
Yeah.
But he might legitimately be a 40 steal guy, and he's going to get on base a ton. And I like the bat to ball skills. I do not think it would be surprising if Brice, Turang, and Luke Ketel had the same season next year.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It really comes down to the power. How much power is Ketel going to deliver on? Because he started out hitting, home runs at a pretty good clip, but then, as he stayed up in the majors longer, ended up with just 4 home runs and 207 plate appearances. And you can understand that looking at the pull air rate and the suspect exit velocities. But then you look at that minor league track record, he did better at pulling the ball in the air. And that's something that hitters can improve upon, certainly. It's something young hitters struggle with a lot in the majors, pulling the ball in the air enough to max out their power. So if Ketel doesn't do that, then his upside is probably Nico Hoerner-like. But if he does do that, then his upside is
top 3.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think there's a really decent chance he's a top 50 pick in 2027. I'm really excited about Luke Ketel. I don't think I'm going to be on my own on that one. I think a lot of people are going to be on him.
Things don't usually play out this way, but if you take his numbers and just extrapolate them over a full season, 13 homers, 82 runs, 92 RBI, 46 steals this past season for Luke Ketel. Let's wrap up with Jackson Holliday and Marcus Semien. Jackson Holliday improved across the board, especially the plate discipline, which we needed to see. He went 17-17 in 149 games, still just 22 years old next season. And Scott, I said this earlier, I don't think I'll be alone in thinking this, but it seems completely fair to expect another step forward for Jackson Holliday.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe I'm just wrong. I feel like when a player comes up as hyped as Jackson Holliday does, and he disappoints as thoroughly as he has twice in a row now, the shine is kind of worn off for fantasy. People are usually, if you try promoting that guy again in fantasy, pushing that guy again, you're met with pitchforks and torches. But maybe Jackson Holliday, given how young he is, will be a special exception, and people will still be seeing the glass half full with him. I mean, you said, yes, he made these improvements. He did make improvements. He went from pretty much horrible at all those things to not very good at all those things. But he is very young. He does have that top prospect pedigree. I am a very open-minded analyst to begin with, so it wouldn't take much to convince me Holliday's going to make another leap. I just wonder how convinced the general public will be of that.
He was, I will say, he was so much better against breaking balls than he was as a rookie. He had a 168 xWOBA and a 39% whiff rate against breaking balls in 2024. It was 305 and 26% in 2025. Again, like you said, Scott, still pretty bad. You know, he went from horrible at a lot of things to still pretty bad, but you know, forward momentum. We're looking for some forward momentum.
From age 20 to 21.
Yeah, that's also.
I want to put that in context.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Like he is 9 games.
This is me trying
22.
He's still younger than a lot of the guys who were drafted this year.
Yeah.
This is me trying to get in the mind of the average drafter and how they respond to repeated disappointments from hyped players. It's usually not good. I rank Holliday 11th at second base for next year. You know, if it was some other position, he might not be in my top 20, but because it's second base, okay, let's chase the upside here. But I don't think of it as a high probability play. Just we need something to be hopeful here at second base.
If you're going to bet on anything, I'd rather bet on Jackson Holliday's age than Marcus Semien figuring it out, you know?
Even if he just repeats what he just did, 240, 17, 17, that doesn't completely kill you. And again, he's just so young and he made improvements. I would expect him to do that again. He also finished pretty poorly the final 2 months. So would have been nice to see him have more positive momentum to end the season. The Orioles, I guess, were kind of a mess during that stretch as well. Well, they were playing better, but you know, their season was already over, I guess, at that point. Chris, take us home. Is Marcus Semien toast? Or what level toast? You know, is it like complete? You left it in the toaster way too long. It's just like it's not edible, or
you're scraping off the burnt parts if you're trying to eat it at this point. I think
the toast never tastes good.
Oh, you know, it's done. You should just start over. It's a slice of bread. It's just a slice of bread. It's fine.
Just draft Jackson Holliday.
But you put in the time already. You've given up you've sacrificed the piece of bread. You want to try and salvage this toast, but you're not going to get rid of that burnt taste.
The little number on the toaster is the amount of time it's going, and not just like I want it 3 toasted.
Is it 3 minutes?
Yeah, it's 3 minutes, which makes way more sense. But just for me, I was just like, yeah, I want my toast at level 3. Yeah. And that's no. Okay. Yeah, he's like a 5. on the 6 levels of toast doneness, I think. A lot of the underlying skill set stuff for Marcus Semien isn't that different than it was in 2023 when he was still a very good fantasy option. It's just he's 35 and he hasn't done the trick 2 years in a row now. Mm-hmm. And so the margin for error for this type of player is always super slim. We've seen that with Ozzy Albies, who is kind of the same guy in a lot of ways as a hitter. Doesn't really have much power, but gets the most out of it by pulling the ball in the air. Now we also saw Marcus Semien miss time with injury. Was it wrist injury? Thumb injury at the end of the season?
I think it was a broken foot, right?
Broken foot. That makes more sense, yeah. So now you can't necessarily pencil him in for the 160-game edge in playing time that he always had. That lineup is pretty bad now in a way that I don't think is going to turn around. I think we're kind of past expecting the Rangers to be this great lineup, and so
there's some talk of them selling, right?
Yeah.
This offseason.
So I just look at it all, and it's just like this is absolutely just a fallback option for me, Marcus Semien. And
he's still top 12 for me.
Oh yeah, no, he's still
right behind
just
Holiday.
Barely. But if you want to go Xavier Edwards because you want speed instead, I think that's fine. After that, it's like, well, I think I'd rather just do Semien than Ceddanne Rafaela or Gleyber Torres. Just like Gleyber Torres doesn't really do anything all that well, and he was really bad in the second half.
He's great in an expected stats league, though.
Yeah, but like even like if the choice is like the 180th pick on Marcus Semien, and I have that's just pulling a number out of nowhere. But if that's what it ends up being versus my last pick on Matt McLain or Luis Garcia, if they get that cheap, I think I'd rather just wait on those guys. At least they're young and have theoretical upside. I just don't really think there's much upside with Marcus Semien anymore.
So real quick, I'm a little more hopeful for Semien because we saw that stretch midseason where he looked like Marcus Semien again, and he's historically gets off to slow starts, and then he had the foot injury that kind of knocked him out for the fight. We didn't get to see a chance to see it play out fully. The data still looks about like it always did, and maybe he'll be fine. Certainly can't count on it, but if the price is right, maybe he'll be fine. It's just you could say that about so many players here. So if I put Jorge Polanco 9th as the last second baseman who you kind of feel good about, and mileage may vary there even. After that, it's like, okay, so do you want to gamble on Semien bouncing back? Do you want to gamble on Ceddanne Rafaela taking a step forward, or
Xavier who I might want to gamble on?
Stealing a bunch of bases again, or Jackson Holiday taking the step forward, or Matt McLain bouncing back. Like there are so many that it's kind of just there are so many where you could squint and see it working out really well, and you kind of just take the shot on the one you believe in the most. And I don't know. In those scenarios, I usually let someone else take the shot in who they believe in the most, and I'll take whoever they leave for me. So that kind of, once you're past the quote unquote bankable second baseman, that's probably the approach I'm taking at the position is just, okay, you want to leave McLain for me? Fine, I'll take him for next to nothing. If you want to leave Rafaela or Xavier Edwards for me for next to nothing, fine. That's what I'll do. But it's a lot there that a lot that feel pretty unsafe, but you could make the case for them performing a lot better in 2026.
You know who my punt play at second base is going to be?
Who's that?
I think Lenyn Sosa might be good. I think
he does one thing pretty well.
I think he might legitimately be like a 270 hitter with 25 homers next year. I think he's good.
They'll be terrible in points leagues because
I'm talking roto. I'm talking like I'm waiting. I filled my middle infield position 10 rounds ago, and now it's time to get a second baseman. That happens sometimes. Lenyn Sosa might be my guy.
I think he'll be a very cheap source of 20 homers and not much else.
Yeah.
This feels like a position where maybe you take a few shots just late in your draft, just for bench pieces and see. maybe someone kind of, explodes early on in the season and you try to hit gold there at second base. We are going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we will be back again next week. Bye-bye.